Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Matt here, today doing another stage analysis video. It's going to be another stage this time from the East Glastonbury fishing game qualifier that I shot in the spring of 2024. And as I mentioned in the last analysis video, this stage is one that I wanted to cover that didn't go so well for me. It didn't go poorly. I still ended up getting 9 out of the 12 possible points, which isn't too bad. But I think if I had been more careful in my stage prep as well as the actual execution of the stage, I could have probably done better. So I thought I would cover it and talk about little things that I would have done differently in hindsight. And I think it's also important to note that just because a shooter cleans a stage or does really well doesn't mean they couldn't have done something better. And then on the flip side, sometimes you do everything in your power to do things perfectly and control all the factors within your control, and you're still going to drop points. In this case, for this stage, I think I could have definitely done some things better, especially when it came to the planning of the stage. So it's all things I wanted to cover today. Now, there is a lot going on in this stage, but I basically broke down the issues into these 3 sort of categories. The first one was the stage prep was a little lacking. I think I could have done better. I did prep for it with some thought. Like, I definitely put some thought into the stage prep, and we'll go over that, but I think I didn't quite visualize what I had to do on the stage before actually shooting it, which definitely factored into me getting a bit confused and leading into the second part here, which was panicking. So I did start to panic a bit on the clock, and you'll see some effects of that, both my decision making as well as my wobble zone. You can see the heart rate make my wobble zone quite bad. And then the third issue, which again is a direct consequence of the previous 2, was I believe I was suffering from some parallax error in my scope due to me panicking and not taking the time to dial my parallax because of poor stage prep. So those are sort of the 3 things that I wanted to discuss in this particular stage analysis. And looking at the stage itself here, the stage design was just shot from one position on top of this grassy hill. So just one position. However, the targets, as you can see on screen, were basically 4 different things. The first one was a KYL rack at 40 yards. And for those of you who might not know, a KYL rack, KYL stands for Know Your Limits, and it's simply a target rack with targets going from large to small. And this particular KYL rack had 6 targets for the stage. However, the actual physical rack of targets were 8. There was 8 paddles on it, which was a factor because it did lead to some confusion, again, from poor stage prep, because I didn't realize only the left 6 targets were in play, and we ignored the last 2 on the actual KYL rack itself. I'll go into more detail about that afterwards. But besides the KYL rack at 40 yards, we had 3 other targets: a rabbit at 71 yards, a diamond at 151 yards, and another rabbit silhouette at 115 yards. And the way you would shoot this stage is quite simple. If we sort of separate the KYL rack on its own and we denote the other 3 as target 1, target 2, and target 3, you would simply go KYL rack, target 1, KYL rack, target 2, KYL rack, target 3, and then repeat for a total of 12 shots. And every time you engage the KYL rack, you're going to the next smallest target. But there was a small caveat, and that was this stage was hit to advance, which isn't the norm. Most PRS stages is hit or miss. So if you engage a target and you miss, you just keep going on. A stage like this, which is hit to move or hit to advance, means if you miss a target, you have to re-engage that target until you get an impact before moving on. And it's still capped at the 12 rounds for this stage. So any shots you miss during the stage are just taken off the back end, and you won't get through the entire target sequence. So that was the stage design here. Again, just basically going between the KYL rack and the 3 other targets. But there was also a substantial amount of movement in terms of the target pan. I can't remember exactly, but it was probably about a 45-degree pan between the KYL rack, which was off to the right, and the leftmost target. So you were swinging your gun round on this little grassy hill a substantial amount, which is another reason, or the main reason, why I decided to not use a bipod and shoot off of 2 bags here with a rear pump pillow, because you were moving so much that I didn't want to have to deal with a bipod on, again, sort of this mound of grass. Going on to the KYL rack specifically, because this is, again, an important factor of what was going on in my mind, and the confusion was the rack, as I mentioned, had eight paddles on it. And you can see here in my trigger cam footage, the field of view doesn't capture all of them. There's one more target to the left. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 paddles on here, but again, we're only using the first 6 on the left. So as I was going through this stage, I knew I had to go between KYL and target. So I thought I was running out of time a lot more severely than I actually was, because I saw, as I was engaging these KYL targets, I still had a bunch of them left to engage, when in reality the last 2 weren't even part of the stage. I was also the first shooter for my squad when we got to this stage. I remember we got up to the stage area and the squad in front of us had already finished shooting it. So they were coming off the line, which means I didn't have an opportunity to watch a shooter go first in front of me, which is always a bit of a benefit. It can allow you to learn certain quirks about the stage. And more importantly, for a stage like this, it would have allowed me to figure out the, I guess, time management a little bit better, because I was worried with 12 shots going between targets, I was going to run out of time. So I did prepare for that. My dope card, along with the targets you can see here, is pretty straightforward, but I wanted to make sure I was prepared for both holding over or dialing if I chose to. The left column on my dope card here is the raw elevation solutions for the targets, and then the right column would be my holdovers if I were to dial for the KYL rack. And lastly, I wrote down HTM and underlined it a bunch of times, which stands for hit to move, because that's not the norm, and it's something that I am prone to forget. So I wanted to remind myself that it was hit to move. You can probably see where I'm going with this, because it is something that I slipped up on. So I got ready, I prepped my dope card, and I even marked my elevation solutions here in the left-hand column on my turret, because on my turret, I have this, it's just a vinyl tape that allows me to use dry erase or wet erase markers on it. So I actually marked my elevation solutions on my turret as well, again, to make dialing a little bit quicker if I chose to do so. And I remember I got on glass quickly and I made sure I knew where all the targets were, and I saw the KYL rack, so I knew where it was, but again, I didn't realize that there was 8 targets on it when we were only engaging 6. Okay, I think the easiest way to go through this stage now, in terms of how I shot it, is to pause at certain moments so I can explain what's going on, because a lot of things happen very quickly, and a lot of the decisions I made is like in the moment. So I'll pause as I need to explain how I shot the stage, and then I'll just watch it in its entirety with no pauses afterwards, so you can get a better feel for how the pacing went when I was actually shooting. So let's go ahead and watch the stage, and I will pause it now as needed. So I'll get the targets off the screen here, but I'll keep my dope card up so we can reference that as well.
Shooter's ready, spotter's ready, shooter
I also
standby.
will put a shot counter on the bottom left here so we can, again, better gauge the progress of where I'm at on the stage. And before we go any further though, to better explain the decision of shooting off 2 bags, you'll notice that the top bag is my plate bag that's attached to my rifle chassis, so it becomes basically one system. It's attached to my chassis, I don't have to worry about it slipping off, and I put that entire thing on top of a Game Changer medium size. I wanted to double up the bags because I wanted to make sure I had enough clearance that nothing on my buttstock or my magazine would hit the ground. So that's what I did. And honestly, I think it was a pretty good choice using the 2 bags because this wasn't the issue here. But that's how I decided to do it. So first, KYL targets generous, just send the shot. I didn't want to waste time on the generous targets. I wanted to get to the smaller ones first. And the first rabbit here at 71 yards, as you can see, again, very generous. My holdover is a 0.8. So I just hold 0.8 and pull the shot because it was generous for the size. I don't want to waste time on that. Second KYL target again, straightforward, and I just hit that, no problems. And you'll also notice, if I go back a few seconds here, you can see that my target image is quite clear because I chose to dial my parallax to the 40 yards on the KYL rack. Now this, I don't want to make this a huge in-depth discussion about parallax, but an important thing to note about shooting rimfire specifically is parallax is very important, especially in the closer distances. I would say for anything, my general rule of thumb, for anything under 80 yards, I want to really make sure that I dial my parallax pretty close to perfect if I'm engaging a small target, because the parallax error in your scope can be very severe at those closer distances. Out further, you know, if we're talking 100 to 200 yards, if the stage targets are only in that distance, I probably won't touch my parallax. I'll set it to something in the middle that can work for all the targets and just run it. But for those really close targets, again, things below 80 yards or so, I'll really favor those targets because parallax error is quite severe. And parallax error, again, I don't want to explain exactly what causes it and all that, but as the shooter, if your head isn't perfectly in line with your scope and you're moving your head off the center line of the scope, your reticle will actually move on your target image. So your actual point of aim is not matching up with your reticle on the image. That's basically what parallax error is, again, in a nutshell. And we'll see sort of the effects of it later on in this stage. But I had to explain that now because it is important to keep in mind. Again, you can see my target image here at 40 yards is clear. That is a side effect of dialing your parallax properly for the distance you're shooting, is that it will also make that image clear. So I can tell, and I remember that I did favor the 40-yard KYL rack for my initial parallax setting starting the stage. But let's see what happens now. So I engage this KYL target, straightforward, and now as I move into the far 151-yard diamond, watch my left hand. It's going to come up right now, and I'm adjusting my parallax. I'm adjusting my parallax very quickly because, again, the parallax error from going from 40 yards to 150 yards is quite severe, and I wanted to favor the 150-yard target for this shot. I didn't dial it perfectly to 151, but I dialed it out maybe to about 100 yards or so to try and engage this target. And you'll see now I'm using a holdover. If you reference my dope card, the holdover I'm going to use now for the diamond is 4.5, and I've marked that on my trigger cam footage. Now I missed the shot. I think it went high left, hard to tell. But as you remember, this stage is hit to move. I was supposed to re-engage it until I hit that target. But what am I doing now? I'm starting to swing back to the KYL. So I swing back to the KYL, I pause quickly, I remember, oh shoot, I'm supposed to engage this target again, so now I swing back to the diamond, but this is all time wasted. And let me get rid of this dope card for now because it's in the way. So now I'm swinging back to the diamond, and then I'm going to dial my turret. So now I dial my turret because I realized the diamond was a pretty small target, and I wanted a finer aiming point. So instead of holding over, I'm now dialed. And you can see my wobble zone was terrible. The reason why my wobble zone was terrible is because that little mistake of me panning towards the KYL and then realizing that's not what I was supposed to do got my heart rate elevated, and now I was starting to see the effects of that. So going back to the diamond, I dialed, but now I was a little bit wobbly. Honestly, that hit on that target was maybe a little bit lucky because the wobble zone was atrocious there, as you saw. And now I have to dial back to the KYL. But you'll notice after I dial back to the KYL here, I never dial my parallax back to 40 yards. And I think that comes back to bite me. So I dial my turret, but I never touch my parallax turret again. And you can see now the target footage for the 40-yard KYL rack is blurry because I have adjusted my parallax again out to the 151, favoring that. It was probably around, I probably dialed it up to like 80 or 100 yards or so, which really does affect my 40-yard shots. It's not going to affect this shot on the third KYL target yet because it's still big enough. So I get the impact. And now I'm halfway through the stage, 6 out of 12, 47 seconds left. And what target am I looking at now? Well, remember, the target array was KYL Rabbit, KYL Diamond, KYL Rabbit. But right now in the scope, I'm looking at the Diamond again. So I have acquired the wrong target because I'm supposed to go to the next Rabbit. I do realize that quickly and I adjust. But again, it's another acquisition mistake, another stage execution mistake, and it makes me just that much more panicky. And all these little issues going on in my head is building and building to making me become mentally foggy on the stage is the best way I can put it. So here we go for the Diamond. I realize that, and then I shift to move to the Rabbit. But again, it was just sloppy, and now I'm dialing for the KYL. Again, blurry, but managed to hit it. Back to the first Rabbit, which is big enough, a really generous target, so I just send it. And back to the KYL. And now this is where I think the parallax issue comes into play, because after dialing my parallax for that second Diamond, favoring further out past 40 yards, you'll see I miss this target and my reticle is low right, almost off the target, and I miss it. And to better explain why I don't see that as the shooter, you have to think about what's happening here, because this footage you're seeing through my scope is coming from my scope camera mounted to the ocular housing. So that the scope camera is always perfectly in line with my scope, so it's seeing the true point of aim at all times, regardless of whether or not my parallax is set properly. Me as the shooter with my head behind my scope, it's free moving. If it's off slightly, I'm actually not seeing exactly what is showing up on camera. I know myself, I would never pull a shot with my reticle this far off center, which leads me to believe that I was suffering from parallax issues at this 40-yard KYL. So let's take a look here and see where I pull the shots. Bottom right, it wasn't a great trigger pull, but it wasn't near the middle. And again, I pull it at the exact same spot. That second miss is very telling because my reticle, if we go back slightly, is still bottom right of the target. And I don't think I would ever pull a shot with my reticle this far from the center with no wind. And I think I was seeing the center of my reticle in the middle of this target, but again, true point of aim, which is shown through the trigger cam, was actually low right. So after I missed the second target, or the second shot, you can see now I'm reaching up with my left hand and I'm dialing my parallax because I figure something's wrong. I usually wouldn't miss two shots at this size target at 40 yards. So I come up, I finally fix the parallax. I don't think I dial it perfectly, but I make it a lot better. You can see the image is much more clear. And my shot is pulled on the middle of the target for that impact. I'm actually already done the stage, but because, again, I saw there was two more targets on the KYL rack, I thought I was running out of time and still had a bunch of shots to do, when in reality, I was done. So honestly, it was just kind of sloppy. And if you listen to the banter at the end of the stage here, you can hear people were saying, what is he shooting at? He's done the stage. And I was confused because I thought I had shots left, which is, I guess, kind of funny.
There's a lot of shit to remember.
That was still 12 rounds for 12 rounds. You were already done. And you were
I was done? Oh, okay, I didn't even realize
I was done.
All right.
I was so confused. I was like, what is
That's
this
a lot
shooting?
to remember.
Magazine.
I still got 9 out of the 12 points, which again isn't too bad, but I think I really could have improved upon that if I had been more careful and really better visualized how I was going to shoot this stage and made sure that I was paying attention, especially to that KOL rack, so I could have recognized I was only shooting 6 out of the 8 targets. But now let's just go back and watch the stage in real time with no pauses, so you can see sort of how quickly everything happened and the decisions you have to make in that sort of split second.
Shooter is ready.
Shooter's ready, spotter's ready, shooter stand by.
So again, into position, smooth sailing for the first few shots.
Attack.
This is where it starts to go wonky. Dial my parallax, which was a good idea for a small target like this, but I miss it. Start to pan back, but it's hit to advance, realize, swing back, dial my turret. Now I'm panicking a little bit, so my wobble zone is terrible.
Impact!
Miraculously hit that. But now my parallax is set to probably like 80 yards or something, so it's a blurry sight picture, but still works out for now. Acquire the wrong target here, realize, swing to the rabbit.
Attack.
And again, every time I look at the KYL rack, I think I have a lot more of this stage to go through, but I'm actually almost done the stage here. Parallax error right here. Dial my parallax in, fix that up, hit my last shot. So lots to learn. All right, so for my school grade rating system on this particular stage, I'm going to give myself a C+, which isn't a fail. Again, I still got 9 out of 12, but I was pretty lucky because I was panicking enough on this stage where I could have easily dropped more points than that. So 9 out of 12 is still a decent score, but I think C+ is going to be what I rate my own stage performance as a whole, taking into consideration, again, the planning, the execution, and what happened on the clock. Anyway, that was it for this analysis video. I hope you guys got something out of it. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Cheers.